There are no prizes for guessing where you are. My old tug, Regina, and I pushed our way up the Seine, under the Pont des Arts, past the islands that have always been the centre of Paris. The city was founded here because it was the only place to cross for miles around. The bridges of Paris are really a marvel. Not only are they extremely solid and beautiful, but they create their own magic, daring the passerby not to fall in love with the city and all that goes with it. To my left, or for the nautical, to my port, lies the splendid Cathedral of Notre Dame, but more of that later. The Seine in Paris is a very busy river with a good brisk current. Concentration is essential. Engine breakdowns a disaster. Pleasure boat captains are the same the world over. Kindness itself to their wives and families, no doubt, but intolerant of the leisure boatmen. I was looking forward to a quiet mooring in the port at the Arsenal. The gates closed, the lock filled, and the Regina and I were welcomed by the exuberant Captain Bernard to one of the most agreeable ports in France.
Here because first that's Paris, you know. So that's a very original thing to come here with your boat in the center of Paris.
Yeah.
That's really marvelous.
So really you're the Hotel Crillon here?
Yeah, quietly.
Yeah. They don't come here for the rollerblading?
No. Some. They
Some,
can. They
yeah.
can too.
Because I think he, the genie, is the original rollerblader. He's on a ball.
Absolutely, the first one.
The first one. I'd heard tell of rollerblading being big in Paris, but had no idea how many Parisians slither along the pavements daily. I set off down the Rue Saint-Antoine to discover a Paris that tourists rarely, if ever, see. All my life I've heard the wardrobe departments in the film industry talking in hushed whispers of the marvels of an ancient haberdasher in the Rue Choiseul, in the same way others talk about places where wild mushrooms grow. This little old Russian lady clearly knew her way around the shop because the owner dispatched her to find the millinery she wanted while he found the border for her. As I watched the owner serve his customer, I realized there was something unusual about him. He certainly wasn't the kind of man one would expect to be serving little old ladies in a haberdashery.
Là, vous avez même 70 seulement. Ça vous suffit? Ça vous suffira 70 cm? Aussi.
In the end, he had to find her millinery for her because she'd forgotten to bring her spectacles. It soon became clear to me that this remarkable emporium wasn't exactly overburdened with customers today or any other day. I wouldn't have long to wait to satisfy my curiosity. He'd told me he'd worked in a bank as a financier and had been fired. One day he found this shop and fell in love with it at once. Even if the shop didn't make any money, he said, he was happy here amongst all these wonderful colors. His customers loved the colors, he said, and anyway, they were far more interesting to talk to than financiers. In the 3 years he'd owned the shop, he hadn't managed to open all the boxes yet. That morning he'd discovered a sack of hats made from hair fur. Stephanie, who used to sell oil rigs, was sewing on a Légion d'honneur medal ribbon to a client's jacket in the department across the road.
Les gens les font fabriquer ciseaux adaptés. Voilà.
Stephanie showed me a couple of boxes of ribbons she'd just discovered. The range of ribbons in this shop is quite extraordinary. Not to be outdone, Le Patron produced yet another sack of hareskin hats. Down in the cellar, He opened boxes of fringe untouched for at least 50 years. I'm still not quite sure why I found myself in the exclusive lingerie shop of Marie-Yvonne Herzog. She told me her métier was essentially to understand and give pleasure.
De comprendre et de faire plaisir et de donner de la joie, du bonheur, du bien-être aux autres. Alors ça passe effectivement par quelque chose et moi c'est passé par la lingerie, par la mode, par la féminité, par la beauté avant tout.
I asked her how she handled women who came here who weren't exactly beautiful.
Pas exactement belle, mais il y a toujours une beauté. Il y a toujours
Not exactly beautiful. There's always something beautiful in a woman. A woman's beauty lies in her energy, she told me. It doesn't matter how beautiful a woman is, if she hasn't any energy, if she's worn out, she simply isn't beautiful.
Sans expression n'est pas une belle femme. Par contre, j'ai des hommes qui viennent pour eux-mêmes.
On the other hand, I have men come here for exactly the same thing, because they too have fantasies. It happened to me after there was an article in the Figaro which said Marie-Yvonne Herzog made lingerie to measure.
Qui disait Marie-Yvonne Herzog fait de la lingerie.
The next day I got a phone call asking whether I would make lingerie for a man.
Me disant, mais est-ce que vous accepteriez de faire de la lingerie pour un homme? Il a l'air très correct. Je vois vraiment pas pourquoi je lui ferais pas plaisir. Et je l'ai rappelé 5 minutes après. Et j'ai pris
He
un
sounded
premier
very
rendez-vous.
proper to me, so I thought, why not? I called him back and set up a meeting. I needed to know first of all who the lingerie was for. I didn't want to get dragged into some pornographic enterprise. But not at all. He'd been brought up with women wearing lingerie and he fancied some for himself.
De porter de la lingerie. Et ça a été un très très bon client. Oui. Très bon client. Ensuite, il me faisait tellement confiance, il me disait... Bah,
He's an extremely good client, except that he can never make up his mind whether he wants grey or red lace.
et je lui mettais des dentelles grises. Et puis la fois suivante, il me disait « Ah ben j'ai pas eu de rouge, alors j'aimerais avoir du rouge. » Puis voilà. C'était extrêmement charmant.
On my way to see a master shoemaker, I stopped to gaze at the column commemorating the victories of Napoleon's great army in the Place Vendôme.
Ça, c'est une question difficile à répondre. Je pense des milliers. Des milliers de modèles.
I'd asked Raymond Massaro how many models he'd created in his life, and he said thousands and thousands. He told me his family had been in the same place for 106 years.
Mon père, avant moi, et moi-même ici.
Do you have more men than women, I asked. It's 80% women and 20% men. Women buy much more. They change their shoes much more. They like low, medium and very high heels for the evening like these. Women are much more difficult, but they're much more exciting. When someone comes to buy a pair of shoes, you need to know for what occasion they want them, why they're ordering them and investing a certain amount of money. In this case, about $1,500 a pair. For women, their heads and their feet are very important. A good pair of shoes give women a certain allure and demeanor. I asked him whether he thought shoes or lingerie were more important for a woman's allure. Shoes take a woman's whole weight, and when she moves, you see them. When she's sitting, you see them too. They create their own sexiness.
Un aspect sexy, on va dire, de la femme. Avec, j'ai appris que chaque pape a des armoiries comme un noble. Oui. Donc chaque fois qu'il change, les armoiries ici changent. C'est vrai. Oui, je ne savais pas moi non plus. J'ai appris.
When I made the Pope his slippers, I learnt each new Pope has his own coat of arms. When I made the slippers in red, it was a return to the old tradition, because before this Pope, they were made in white leather. He said he'd gone to fit the Pope for his slippers in 1980 when he'd come to Paris. The Pope's got large feet. Almost size 44, and he stands firmly upon them. Holding one of Marlene Dietrich's shoes in my hand, I decided to go and see what the boys in the back room were up to. Paris spells luxury for some. For the truly rich, Goyard Trunks is an oasis in the land of luxury. There are 200,000 dogs in Paris, producing 16 tons of poop to scoop a day, but probably only a few have travelling outfits like this. A cashmere coat, a bowl, a game, a collar, a leash, some rubber bones, a brush and comb, and a thermos for cool water on the journey. This little pile of treasures would set you back between $10,000 and $11,000, depending on whether you bought the vanity case on the top. This trunk is just what every well-heeled polo player would really love to have.
Donc pour mettre la selle et les différents accessoires pour les chevaux, pour les sabots, pour l'entretien du cheval. Et ici, donc...
If you love trunks as I do, then this beauty is up your alley. This is the trunk Goyard made in 1931 for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, renowned author of Sherlock Holmes. They've only made 5. Some even have crocodile lining.
La maison Goyard en a fabriqué 5 autres en fait. Alors avec des variantes, puisque certains ont été gainés à l'intérieur de crocodiles. Donc avec
a clock, barometer and thermometer. I suppose this is the 1930s equivalent of the laptop.
Les enveloppes, le papier à lettres. Ici pour mettre les encriers et différents objets de bureau.
This collection of trunks is what a well-dressed woman would require for a month in the country in the 1930s. 3 trunks and 2 hat boxes. In those days, parcels and carrier bags were frowned upon. Another quiet Parisian street led me to a silk flower factory where I was extremely impressed by the attention they took of natural flowers. These shape cutters are used for pressing out the silk. The craft of making flowers in silk came to France via Italy from China in the 17th century.
Ça, c'est pour une mariée.
Madame Juillet, very much the boss, told me she was making a bouquet to go in the hair of a bride for a fashion parade. To my surprise, the girls worked with complete concentration and without saying a word to each other. Being the boss lady of your own silk flower factory does have its advantages. You can make your own hats.
C'est super. C'est tourner la tête comme ça. C'est ravissant.
She explained she'd made this red hat for a fashion parade that a very rich jeweler in the Place Vendôme was putting on. The hat was to have a connection with a precious stone.
Qui souhaitait que les chapeaux que je lui créerais soient en rapport avec les pierres.
She confessed that she was particularly fond of rubies.
Je crois qu'ils interprètent très bien le rubis.
Through the Passage Vivienne and past the Church of the Little Fathers, I found the most energetic woman in Paris. When I arrived, she was helping a gentleman with his costume for a ball he was invited to. He was planning to go dressed as some sort of queen. Madame Febri knows just about all there is to know about flouncy feathers. With the tone of a firm and practical mother, yellow goes well with black, she told the young man.
Parce que vous avez déjà vos talons qui vous grandissent, il faut quelque chose qui soit en proportion sur la tête.
Fascinated, I wandered about while she was finishing with her customer. and looked at all the show business memorabilia on the walls. Maurice Chevalier, Zizi Jeanmaire, the Lido, etc., etc. Madame Febri said her firm had existed as far back as 1929, and business boomed with the Grand Spectacle after the war. Yes, they'd made costumes for Miss Dinguet. In fact, there was a corner of signed photographs of her.
Oui, bien sûr, j'ai tout un panneau, si vous pouvez voir ici, avec même des photos dédicacées d'elle.
I worked for Josephine Baker as well, she told me. I asked her how she do the accounts for 15 days, and here she was 23 years later. I wanted to know if she'd ever thought of being a dancer. No, she laughed. I wasn't tall enough. You need to be at least 1.70 meters. That's 5'7". She said her work combined cabarets, the Republican Guard, and the Académie de France. She made the little red tufts on the caps of the Republican Guard, and the ostrich feathers for some of their other hats. Before she'd let me go and see her work in action at the Moulin Rouge, she insisted on showing me Miss Dinguet's headdress. She explained that the feathers were knotted together, but every time it got dirty, they would have to add another layer of feathers, because they couldn't clean it. The result was it simply got heavier and heavier.
C'était la tête qui s'enfonçait, c'était pas la coiffure. La coiffure montait, mais la tête s'enfonçait. C'était très lourd. Et c'était magnifique.
Paris n'a pas sommeil, alors il se réveille et il s'invente des soleils. C'est féerique, on a branché les sunlights, c'est féerique, pour jouer par les bains comme moderne, top musique, c'est féerique, et tout devient merveilleux, c'est féerique, tout est doré, rouge et bleu, ça voulait des paillettes au fond des yeux, et chaque nuit, mon matin, la sommeil blanche, regardez bien.
The gorgeous Fiona told me the girls had to carry an 8-kilo battery on their backs to light themselves up for the finale. Super. Sir, I believe you're called the Tsar of the bathroom. Yes, some people call me that. I'm really the Prince of Plumbers. Plumber to princes. In some ways, it is a bit excessive, but it's marvelous at the same time. Above all, it's a masterpiece. It's made from onyx, honey onyx from the Roman quarry in Algeria. It weighed 20 tons when it came from the mountain, 10 tons when it was cut down to size, and now it only weighs a ton. The Tsar of the bathroom not only sells all types of ancient bathroom fittings, but he also repairs them for his subjects. I'm fitting an old type of overflow to this bath. It's a column. When the water level in the bath reaches a certain height, the water flows down the inside of the column. It's an old-fashioned heavy system, which worked very well, but it was very expensive to produce. They stopped making them in the 1920s because they were too dear. The Place des Vosges used to be packed with butchers and bakers. Some of the old inhabitants, like Mr. Bissonnet, have moved with the times and made their hobbies pay. Monsieur Bissonnet sells ancient musical instruments of all kinds. What's unusual about him is that he plays them all. You see, I was born a musician in a family of butchers. I was born a musician. My father was a butcher. My grandfather was a butcher, and for generations before that. In those days, you simply didn't have the possibility to change. You'll be a butcher like the rest of us, I was told. But at the same time, I was doing my music with anything I could lay my hands on. For me, it was a real need. Suddenly, to the little dog's dismay, he took up a bit of green plastic and started to play it. He explained to his friend, with this kind of hunting song, you had to sing it like a game or contest with the other person. This song's called Frou Frou and was top of the charts for months 100 years ago in Paris.
Again.
Back on my boat, I thought of Mr. Bissonnet and his music. And then I thought of Miss Tanguay, one of my favorite stars, and her great song about Paris.
La manière de s'en servir, elle a perfectionné la façon de donner.